Quick! We need to pivot to making more live service games. What kind of games would people like in this space? How about a Last of Us multiplayer game? How about a new Resistance? Why not a hero shooter like Overwatch? Those were popular 8 years ago, right? The numbers are in, and Concord is probably the biggest failure in PlayStation history, with the Steam numbers showing a more than disheartening look into the popularity of Concord, or rather a lack thereof, because I've seen more people at the local supermarket at once, which is just unheard of for a live service game. With numbers that low, I don't even know how they can even begin to turn the ship around on this game. Oh wow. This isn't just possibly the biggest failure in PlayStation history, this has just become the biggest failure in the history of live service gaming. So let's get into why exactly Concord was basically dead on arrival. Concord is a game that is stuck in the past in essentially every aspect of it, barring gameplay. This game is just years too late on every aspect it has incorporated into itself. This game is a 6v6 hero shooter that released in the year of our Lord 2024. In a shooter landscape where battle royales still reign supreme over the market and people yearn for more classic shooter experiences, a la Resistance and the like. No one, and I mean no one, asked for a hero shooter in this day and age, and if you say you are, you're lying. Stop it. This genre was popularized by Overwatch in 2016, which was an absolute phenomenon in its release year, and spawned a lot of similar releases in the genre over the years, which for the most part died rather quickly or couldn't even scratch the chokehold Overwatch had on the gaming community. And around that time in 2016 the idea for Concord was formed, but the game took a few years too long in the oven given the fact that it released 8 years after the rise of the genre. And if we're going to keep it a stack, 5 years after everyone was essentially sick of the genre already. Because even the titan of the genre, Overwatch, essentially fell off. I mean, Overwatch even today still has a respectable daily player count of around 50,000 on Steam alone. Combined with the possible 40k on console, would make a daily player count of around 90k, give or take. Most live service games could only dream of reaching a potential daily player count of 90k, but this is just a fraction of what Overwatch was at its peak. But now, years after the rise and fall of the genre, Concord gets announced as a $40 6v6 hero shooter at a Sony State of Play. And the crowd, he goes mild. Because like I said, no one asked for this, and people made their disdain for this game very well known. But you know, maybe the cinematic trailer was just unpopular, you know? No gameplay and all that always rubs gamers the wrong way after all. Good that they prepared a closed beta so people could test the game and see for themselves if the free gun alive would be something for them. Any person that pre-ordered the game would get access to the beta and be able to invite 5 of their friends as well. Now this is a good way to... Huh? What do you mean they opened the beta up to everyone because no one pre-ordered the game? So yeah, they opened the beta up to everyone, which is bad anyways, right? This way they could definitely reach the most amount of players possible. Now they can't. Yeah, with numbers like that, there's no way this game could have even survived the rest of the year. They were finished before the launch month of the game ended. Even before Concord released, the fate of the game should have been clear to anyone privy to these numbers. And the audience reaction to the game should have made that more than clear. But the overall negative reaction to the game shouldn't be shocking to anyone. Because if you take one good look at the game, there's one question that will pop into your mind. Every time I take a look at Concord, this question plagues my mind like no other. Who in the world even is this for? But let's just get to the main point where Concord failed. The characters. Because if there's one thing a hero shooter has to get right, it's the heroes. When you look at the playable characters in a hero shooter, your first thought should be, damn, this nigga got that shit on. Oh man, this guy or girl looks interesting, I could see myself cosplaying that. From then on you would pick your main and go about learning the ins and outs of that character. Learning how to get better and probably working towards obtaining a few nice skins for said hero. And how could you not? All the characters in the biggest hero shooters look incredibly intriguing and can tell you a lot about the character from their design alone. Add a nice art direction to it that looks somewhat playful and equal parts sleek and stylish, expression animations, and you have yourself a banger set of heroes. I myself played Overwatch in 2016 at launch, and immediately gravitated towards D.Va. I mean, we got a cool looking Korean girl in a plug suit that's operating a motherfucking mech that can blow itself up as its ultimate? Nah, that's a 10 out of 10 right there. Sign me up and take my money immediately. And then you take a look at Concord's characters and it's all just so ass. Take one look at Concord's great value characters and tell me you would ever even get the thought of wanting to cosplay them. You wouldn't, of course, because these are the lamest characters I've seen in a hot minute, my guy. Like, oh my lord, these guys look like extra bland background characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And I mean it somewhat literally, given the fact that this game has a character that's literally called Starchild. Like, can you be any more on the nose with it? This game takes heavy inspiration from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which is pretty apparent when you take a look at how the characters act and talk. The cinematic teaser trailer is filled to the brim with the beloved Marvel-style dialogue, which, like the movies, is overdone and grating at this point. But at least those movies look interesting from a visual standpoint, which definitely can't be said about Concord, because even the art direction here is as boring as it gets. Making a hero shooter with a realistic art direction is probably one of the hardest misreads you can possibly make. Hero shooters should be jovial, easy to read from a visual standpoint, and have characters that stand out. The art direction should be more cartoony or anime-ish, so that characters can be as expressive as possible without looking off or weird. Valorant and Overwatch are great examples for that. Making a very bland, realistic game with the standout feature being how good the facial capture on your face scan characters is would definitely be the worst direction you could possibly go in. Funnily enough, the actual planned main attraction of Concord were weekly story vignettes, which was actually a pretty good idea, but implemented in the wrong game. Let me break this down real quick, because this could have been an actual home run for this game. Take Overwatch for example, a game beloved by so many people and filled with characters with rich lore that people are interested in. Hero shooters like Overwatch usually don't have a cohesive way of storytelling, since they usually only feature PvP modes. The only story progression the game had were the cinematic trailers Blizzard rarely produced, and people were clamoring for every bit of story they could squeeze out of them. The characterization, the character design, the art direction, all these things enamored people with the world of Overwatch. If Blizzard implemented weekly story cinematics for Overwatch, it would have done gangbusters, because people actually care about the world of Overwatch. Concord, on the other hand, wanted to show us weekly story cinematics of characters we don't care about in a dreadfully bland world we don't care about either. Whoever had the idea of trying to sell us a story about the Guardians from Wish should never lead a team of creatives again. And I mean that wholeheartedly. We also can't forget that this game relaunched at a price point of $40 in the current multiplayer sphere. You know, the age of multiplayer games where almost everything is free to play, essentially eliminating the barrier of entry. And here comes Concord with a sticker price of $40, hot on the block, and failing miserably. How are you going to convince anyone to play your hero shooter when it costs $40 more than every other competitor on the market, and looks 40 times less interesting than them as well? At every turn in Concord's journey to launch, the wrong decisions were made. From the horribly bland art direction and character design to the actual genre and pricing scheme of the game. If I'm being honest, it's no wonder that Concord died just 14 days after launch, because you can't just throw airballs the entire game and start wondering where you lost at the end. The real question we should be asking is, the underlying question for a video like this would be, what is next? And the answer is pretty grim from every angle you could think of. From Sony's angle, you now have bought a studio for a game that became your biggest failure of all time. The game died 14 days after launch, and you now got people questioning the IF4 quality you have, because that is Sony's whole shtick. Production per square inch is something you can observe in all of Sony's first party releases, and Concord only has this on a technical level, and nothing more. From Fireworks' perspective, you have just released the worst live service game in history. A hero shooter no one wants, with character designs that are just god-awful. You have a team of higher-ups that were so certain in their design decisions that they couldn't even notice that they were cooking something so awful the entire kitchen burned down. Something you worked on for 8 years was no good at all, and you're essentially at the mercy of your new publisher with no positive feats to your name. Here's how things could play out. Situation A. Sony could shut down Firewalk and relocate the staff that can actually cook. to their other studios and let go of the rest. This would obviously reflect pretty bad on them, given the fact that they already let go of hundreds of people this year. And even more people would lose their jobs. Another fact that would probably look pretty bad for Sony would be that they bought a new studio for a game that they were so sure would succeed in every possible way, that just failed, crashed and burned after 14 days. Crazy, by the way. On the other side, we have scenario B. Sony lets Firewalk redesign Concord. This would mean that everything that's bad about the game needs to be completely redesigned by Firewalk from the ground up. So basically everything but the actual gameplay of the game. This game needs better art direction, better character design, and better writing for it to even have a chance of becoming successful or profitable. This means that everyone that is working in a design lead position at Firewalk right now needs to be let go. The people in charge that made Concord can't be anywhere near a leadership position on the reimagining of the game, because they would just ruin it again. The game also would need a new name, because nothing anyone works on should be connected to the meme that is Concord at this point. The name of the game is just far too loaded to be used again. This would of course be pretty costly, because the entire game has to be remade again, but I can't see any other way they could even begin to salvage the mess that is Concord. In my eyes, Concord is a done deal and can't be brought back in its current state, but the bones of the game, that being gameplay, can be probably salvaged. This would of course take years of investment, because reimagining a game takes quite a bit of time, but this is something Sony should probably consider if they really want to go after this live service gaming shtick they're hot on right now. But all the other bones and meat like art direction, story and character design need to be trashed if they want to make something resembling a good game. This was Deteo, and man, Concord was the biggest train wreck in live service history.